In this epic dark fantasy city builder, you'll go up against mysterious monsters and even worse, the weather. Against the Storm has finally made its way to full release, and in this video I'm going to be giving a full review on the game. If you're new here, my name is Beck, aka Caffeinated Chaos Click, and I make content all about indie games. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more indie game reviews, recommendations, playthroughs, and more. Without further ado, let's grind this game down and see how it brews. Against the Storm transports you to a dark fantasy world full of mysterious monsters and with a pretty brutal weather system. Your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to rebuild civilization whilst going up against the apocalyptic rains that plague the world. You'll play as the Queen's Viceroy, charged with reclaiming the wilderness and discovering goods to send back to the city. The story of the game really throws you into the depths of the dark fantasy world. You're quickly given a task to establish a network of settlements whilst carefully balancing displeasing the Queen. Each settlement location sees you face up against different challenges. And with a range of different biomes and different strengths and weaknesses, the Ravaged world is pretty well established. The developers have really done a great job of creating a world that feels like it firmly belongs in the fantasy world, and the captivating story really draws you to complete your tasks. The balance between story and gameplay is pretty good, with the game taking a story-heavy feel for the first few settlements before easing off as you get more familiar with the game. A pretty good mix for a city builder sim. Overall, the Against the Storm story is dark and mysterious, whilst also pitting you up against some well-established fantasy tropes. So for story and world building, I'm rating Against the Storm as juice. Against the Storm takes on some pretty classic city builder functionality. You'll have a range of different resource buildings that collect certain resources, as well as housing and crafting buildings. You'll start off with a few of the core buildings, but you'll need to unlock a lot of them through cards that you earn by completing quests. How do these quests work, you might ask? Well, the Queen sets you certain quests that are crucial to establishing the settlement. You'll be able to choose from 2 different options for each quest, and there are different rewards for completing each one. Completing quests is essentially how you win the levels and satisfy the Queen's needs, so they're pretty crucial to the gameplay. Speaking of the Queen, your success is determined by her level of satisfaction. Take too long to complete quests and you'll be at risk of losing and having to start your settlement all over again. Each settlement starts off with a small cleared area containing a hearth that is crucial to your residents' happiness. Your residents are made up of 3 different groups: humans, lizards, and beavers, and each have different specialties that determine which buildings they are better suited to staffing and give you a nice little bonus if you match them up. You'll find more resources by chopping your way through to different glades, which are each full of randomly generated resources or glade events. There's 3 different types of glades: neutral, dangerous, and forbidden. And as you can imagine, that changes the difficulty level of what you'll find hidden in the fog, with some events taking on a hostile role and potentially killing your residents. Now, all of those aspects combined make for a pretty cool and intricate balancing act. Having the Queen's satisfaction levels determine if you win or not is a cool way to measure success, and the quests give you a lot of direction as to which buildings you should unlock and what you need to focus on. Add in that you need to balance your residents' happiness too, with it naturally dipping when you're being plagued by the storm, and it quickly becomes an engaging management experience. I will say that the process does become a little repetitive after you've done a few settlements. The conditions can change depending on the locations you choose, but typically the different settlements feel quite similar, so it can feel pretty repetitive. Overall, Against the Storm provides pretty balanced and engaging game mechanics that have a whole range of aspects to consider, but it can feel a little bit repetitive after you've done a few settlements. So for game mechanics, I'm rating Against the Storm as juice. The graphics and sound in Against the Storm are full of dark fantasy goodness. You'll be presented with a moody and broody graphic style that fits with the dark themes of the world, and there are some pretty classic fantasy aspects, particularly in the landscape design, that definitely fit the dark fantasy genre. There's a high level of detail in this game, and all of the UI is pretty easy and clear to understand, with all of the key elements easily locatable, and the game generally has a pretty magical feel to the world. The differentiation in the different biomes is done really well, making it easily determinable which type of map you're playing, and the weather effects are super cool, with each of the storm cycle periods defined really well. The music helps build the fantasy atmosphere in the game, but isn't intrusive, merely providing a nice backdrop to establish a settlement to, which is perfect for a city builder type game. The sound effects are useful, helping you recognize certain events, like when you finally make it into a glade, and fit seamlessly into the Against the Storm world. Overall, the graphic and sound design is well thought out and firmly establishes the game in the dark fantasy world. So for graphic and sound design, I'm rating Against the Storm as fully caffeinated. Against the Storm is a city builder that is pretty unique. The dark fantasy theme is done in a pretty unique way, and using the Queen's satisfaction as a way to measure your success is a pretty different way to track progress in your level. There's a lot of city builders out there, and this one does follow similar mechanics. So while it's got a unique take on it, underneath is similar to a lot of other city builders out there. For Originality, I'm rating Against the Storm as juiced. Overall, Against the Storm is a solid city builder game with a dark fantasy spin that is really fun to play. The story is interesting and the mechanics are well balanced, however it can feel a little bit repetitive over time. The graphics and sound design bring some fantasy vibes to the game with a moody spin that is perfect for the stormy world, and the game feels pretty unique but with some familiar aspects that we know and love in a city builder. We've ground the beans, we've carefully weighed and pressed the grinds and brewed this game down. Now, it's time for a taste test. Against the Storm is juiced. Against the Storm is available to purchase on Steam, or you can play via Xbox Game Pass. You can find the link in the description below, and that's where we're going to wrap up this review video. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more indie game content like reviews, playthroughs, recommendations, and more. And if you're interested in the fully caffeinated and always chaotic live gameplay experience, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube, Twitch, or TikTok to watch my live streams there. Until next time, stay caffeinated.